The idea for Telegram came when we were still based in Russia, because at some point we had this very stressful situation where armed policemen would come to my house, try to break in, because I refused to take down these opposition groups that I mentioned earlier. And I realized there is no secure means of communication. I realized I want to tell my brother what's going on, to coordinate whatever we want to do. And every tool to communicate I could use was not really secure, not encrypted. It was not safe to use them. So I thought, it could be a good idea to actually come up with a decently encrypted messaging app. And my brother, being the genius that he is, he was able to create this encryption standard that we're using up until this day with minor changes.
I have heard people say that Telegram is a part of the Russian government, and you're describing the opposite. You're saying you had to leave the country because you wouldn't bow to their demands.
Well, exactly like you're saying, people who have very limited knowledge of where Telegram came from, they would make these claims. I left behind probably a comfortable life. But for me, it was never about becoming rich. For me, everything in my life was about becoming free.
Yes.
And to the extent it is possible, my mission in life was to allow other people to also become free, in a sense. And using the platforms that we created, or I created, my hope was that they could express their freedoms. This is the mission of Telegram, and it was also, in part, the mission of my previous company, VK. We tried several places. We first went to Berlin. We tried to set up a company in Berlin. We then tried London, Singapore, San Francisco, you name it, we've been everywhere. And
why didn't you stay in any of those places?
Oh, because the bureaucratic hurdles were just too difficult to overcome. I was bringing the best-in-class programmers in the world to these places, and I was trying to hire them from a local company. And the response I got in places like Germany, for example, is that no, you can't hire people from outside of the European Union because you should first run some newspaper ad in a local magazine, whatever. And then if for 6 months nobody responds from engineers that are available inside the European Union and Germany, then you're allowed kind of to hire outsiders. And I thought it was a crazy idea because...
Why didn't you just say they were illiterate refugees?
Well, because we didn't consider ourselves refugees. We were, very successful people. We could have gone anywhere.
I know, but if you told them you were illiterate refugees, they would let you stay.
We got too much attention from the FBI, the security agencies, wherever we came to the US. So to give you an example, last time I was in the US, I brought an engineer that is working for Telegram, and there was an attempt to secretly hire my engineer behind my back by cybersecurity officers or agents, whatever they are called.
The US government should hire your engineer?
That's my understanding. That's what he told me.
To write code for them or to break into Telegram?
They were curious to learn which open source libraries are integrated to the Telegram's app, on the client side, and they were trying to persuade him to use certain open source tools that he would then integrate into the Telegram's code that, in my understanding, would serve as backdoors.
Would allow the US government to spy on people who use Telegram?
The US government, or maybe any other government, because a backdoor is a backdoor regardless of who is using it.
That's right.
For us, running a privacy-focused social media platform, that probably wasn't the best environment to be in. We want to be focused on what we do, not on government relations of that sort.
So then you came to UAE, to Dubai?
Yes. 7 years ago, we moved here. We first wanted just to try for half a year, see if it works out. And it turned out to be a great place. We never looked back, and we never wanted to change the UE for any other place after that.
Why?
Well, for a number of reasons. First, the ease of doing business here is so high. For example, you can hire people from anywhere in the world as long as you're paying them a good salary. The residence permits they're granted automatically. It's very different. If you try to do that in Europe and some other countries, it's very different from that. Second, it's very tax efficient. Third, the infrastructure is great. You get a lot for the minimum amount of taxes you're paying. The roads, the airports, the hotels, everything. I think you witnessed it yourself.
Yes.
But I think more importantly is that it's a neutral place. It's a neutral country. It's a small country that wants to be friends with everybody. It's not aligned geopolitically with any of the big superpowers. And I think it's the best place for a neutral platform like ours to be in if we want to make sure we can defend our users' privacy and freedom of speech.
Have you come under pressure from other governments under whose jurisdiction you don't fall, but to accommodate their demands?
Well, of course. Well, Telegram is a large platform. We are popular in many, many countries. And we've been receiving a lot of requests, demands. Some of them were legitimate. Right? If there was a group of people who was promoting violence, there was terrorist activity that was, spreading violence in some parts of the world, publicly posting things that any decent human being would disallow or wouldn't want to be posted. We would help them. But in some other cases where we thought it would be crossing the line, it wouldn't be in line with our values of freedom of speech and protecting people's private correspondence, we would ignore. I would say the largest pressure towards Telegram is not coming from governments. It's coming from Apple and Google.
Huh.
Right? So when it comes to freedom of speech, those two platforms, they could basically censor whatever you can read, access on your smartphone.
So, do you run the risk of being thrown out of their stores?
Exactly. That's what they make very clear, that if we fail to comply with their guidelines, so they call it, Telegram could be removed from the stores.
So there are a number of conflicts going on around the world right now, and that may accelerate. Mm-hmm. So would you expect that the number of demands and the intensity of those demands, the persistence of those demands, would increase as the wars become more intense?
Let's see. I'm really hopeful that the past is behind us. I want to be optimistic. I think now we reached a point where politicians and societies know what to expect from social media platforms and where the red lines are.
Yes.
We also learned much more about the requirements coming from both them and Google/Apple. So, and our users get better educated as well at what is allowed and what's not allowed. So I don't necessarily believe that things are going to get worse.
It does seem like the red line for governments is allowing organized opposition to their rule.
Definitely, there's a pattern here. Telegram has been used by protesters in places like Hong Kong,
yes,
Belarus, Kazakhstan, even in Barcelona back in the day.
Yes.
So it's been a tool for the opposition to a large extent, but it doesn't really matter whether it's opposition or the ruling party that is using Telegram. For us, we apply the rules equally to all sides. We don't become prejudiced in this way. It's not that we are rooting for the opposition or we are rooting for the ruling party. It's not that we don't care, but we think it's important to have this platform that is neutral to all voices, because we believe that the competition of different ideas can result in progress and a better world for everyone.
That's in stark contrast to, say, Facebook, which has said in public, we tip the scale in favor of this or that movement in this or that country, all far from the West and far from Western media attention, but they've said that. What do you think of that? Tech companies choosing governments?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why we ended up here in the UAE, out of all places, right? So you don't want to be geopolitically aligned. You don't want to select the winners in any of these political fights. And that's why you have to be in a neutral place. But I think Facebook in particular has a lot of reasons, apart from being based in the US, for doing what they're doing. I think every app and platform plays its own role, and we believe that humanity does need a neutral platform like Telegram that will be respectful to people's privacy and freedoms. To be completely fair, Telegram did take outside money. We issued bonds 3 years ago, so we raised debt, and that was. And before that, we had a cryptocurrency project that also raised some funds. So there were instances where we raised outside funding. But when it comes to company equity,
yeah, you didn't give up ownership.
We didn't give anyone ownership or voting control or anything like that. Because we also believe in efficiency. I think that having myself as the sole owner, director, and product manager for this extensive period of time in the company's development allowed us to move faster, and we want to be a neutral platform that is impartial and doesn't take any side. But you're probably right, that there's some role we have to play.
Well, not taking a side is the one thing you're not allowed to do, right? I mean, aren't you required to take a side in the modern world?
I think that's a big problem, because I think that kind of attitude can result in our world becoming a more dangerous place. Because at the end of the day, we all have to try to understand each other and try to get closer to each other in terms of getting to know the positions of the other people, even though they're drastically different from our own positions. And that's how we get to some compromise and move forward. If we're strictly divided and everybody is required to take a side, I mean, we can't take a side, because we are this platform that people should use to collaborate and to find common ground and hopefully to move forward. If we lose that, we can end up in a much more dangerous place.